This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com. The only place to be in your pop culture world.
You're listening to the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all Place to Be Nation.
Broadcasting from the state-of-the-art L-shaped studios at beautiful and serene Ho-Ho Loon Plaza in Vancouver, British Columbia. Greg Phillips and Nick Duke are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
When you hear this show, you better run for cover. Klondike Bill's a sausage lover.
I got a 10-inch kielbasa from Klondike Bill.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Slobber.
It's a weekly podcast and you better listen. Keep your ears in mid-condition. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Got a 33-in-1 chance of winning.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
You are listening to the longest running
weekly episodic
comic book
podcast
in
all
Place to Be Nation.
What was up with your weird pause there? It didn't make any sense.
Well, let me tell you why, Nicholas. Because you, on the other side of the L-shaped studio in Ho-Ho Loon Plaza in Vancouver, British Columbia, did not say anything on my end. Your voice came through the L-shaped hallway at an incredible delay.
Now everyone is seeing how the sausage is made.
That's right. And it's amazing how robotic your voice sounds on my end, on the other end of the L-shaped hallway studio.
Not a concern over here. So let's just push forward, quite frankly.
Quite frankly, let's just push forward. I am Greg Phillips, and that soulful voice on the other end of the line is one Walter Duke, my long-term companion.
Oh,
the Mae Young to my fabulous Moolah.
Huh.
And yes, there's a lot of ramifications in that.
There is. Greg, we have
the Scotty Riggs to my Marcus Alexander Bagwell.
That's true. You made reference to us having been longtime companions, and we've been together long enough that I think I can make one request, and that request is, Greg, I would appreciate it if you would not pull your love out on me.
Yeah, if I do, then I bet that you'll just lay yourself down and cry for 1,000,000 years.
100 even.
100 years, 1,000,000 years. All I know is when those twins are singing to each other, there's no denying the love that dare not speak its name. Don't pull your love out on me, baby.
There it is. People have no idea what we're talking about.
No. We're going so inside, Nick, that we're going to an inside reference that's literally only existed for a little over a week now.
That's true. We are being very inside with each other, which is not the first time. So
No, not at all. Not at all. And what we are doing is we are bringing you the latest edition of our ongoing series, Hard Travelers for Hire.
Now you may be thinking to yourself, isn't it about time for you to do a long book hunt? You hadn't done one of those in a while. Why are you doing Hard Travelers for Hire again? And the answer, because we want to.
A great point, Nicholas. Because there's been a lot going on in the world of the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. I mean, we had a big, you were just in my neck of the woods and way down, thousands of miles away in Alabama to help me move into a new city just a little over a week ago. Had a big move in my life, and I haven't had a chance to go through all my boxes to find said long books. So because of that, we're kind of a little bit behind the eight ball on that. But we figured, why not go back to Hard Travelers for Hire? It's such a popular series. And of course, let's face it, no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to follow last week's episode. Because last week's episode, of course, as everyone should know by now, was Comic Book Theater Watchmen Part 2. And Nick, I think I speak for the world when I say it's a masterpiece that should be forever enshrined in the Smithsonian.
I agree. If I were going to rate it on a scale, that's the difficult thing, is to come up with what kind of scale I might rate it on and what kind of numerical value on that scale I would give it. Greg, do you have any thoughts on that topic?
Well, I think the only thing to rate it on, you would certainly have to look to the sky and come up with some sort of celestial body to rate it by. So perhaps maybe a scale of 1 to 8 moons?
No, I don't like it. What else you got?
What about 1 to 3 suns?
No, that's not it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, an asteroid rating scale?
No.
Well, what about stars?
Stars are good. That's okay, but what about stores?
Are you thinking JCPenney? Are you thinking
no, very
Woolsworth?
Very similar to stars, just with an O instead of an A.
I'll have to take it under advisement, but nonetheless, Place to Be Nation Theater, Comic Book Theater Watchmen Part
2 thing,
sponsored by a hypothetical DC Online Peter David subscription service.
Coming soon, a comment from Peter David saying, "I did not write Watchmen."
So it's a delight, folks. We had a helping hand from a veritable heaven of helpers from the Place to Be Nation universe. Our overlords helped us. The wrestling side, the comic side, and even some outsiders, including what I think was a star-making or store-making debut by one Andrew Chandler Fraser Garner in the role of psychiatrist.
Yes, in the role of psychiatrist Skip Long. Yes, I thought it was outstanding. And perhaps there will be an opportunity, Greg, to honor notable performances during comic book theater during the next giant size edition that we have coming down the pike. Yes,
you might want to start flying those flags at half-mast.
You might want to do so.
You catch my drift.
And as is often the case with a halfie, it's coming sooner rather than later.
Oh, that was a sexual reference. So what we are doing is we are returning to our Hard Travelers for Hire series, and it's our movie-by-movie journey, our jaunt, our saunter through the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I got to say, Nick, at this point, we're cutting a pretty good pace because we are already upon 2016's final Marvel film, which was Doctor Strange.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely are cutting quite the pace. Next month, of course, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 coming out, so we are... we can see the end of this project on the horizon. Now, granted, later in the year we have some theme months coming up, including one that I want to talk about or will announce officially. I think you and I have talked about it before, and you may have forgotten, but it's one that I'm really excited about coming up in July, a theme month we're doing. We also have the annual Walking Dead theme month in October, and an Aquaman theme month in December that is going to celebrate the release of his first cinematic outing. So we have some theme months in here that are going to stretch us out all the way until the release of Avengers 4 next year. But we're definitely starting to feel like we're getting in the latter stage of this project. We are fully into Phase 3 at this point, which is...
Yeah, the indicator has just come out to say that there's 10 laps to go.
Right.
So the checkered flag is in sight. I don't know if that analogy works, but the checkered flag is in sight, and we're making those left turns at a rapid rate.
Bob Sparkplug Holly is out there, and he's doing a good job.
Yes, and I think if I remember correctly, July is Virgil Appreciation Month. Yes.
Yes, Virgil Appreciation Month, which we will announce officially towards the end of the show.
Terrific, absolutely terrific. So, without any further hullabaloo, for those who are familiar, you know how this works. For those that may be newcomers to the show, perhaps we won you over with Comic Book Theater. Hard Travelers for Hire, and just like Off the Page, we want the listeners, that would be you, to experience this along with us, if possible. Now, a lot of you listen in your cars, or not at all, and in that case, obviously you can't do this with us. But if you're at home and you've got a copy of Doctor Strange, or if you're like me and you've got a Netflix subscription that you're using from someone else's account, and you can pull up Doctor Strange, it is on Netflix right now. You can pull it up and stream it. And we will allow you to do so if you want to pause the podcast right now and get it up. And we run ours on mute and have the subtitles on.
We always like it when you get it up during our podcast.
Yes, but only to half staff. So we don't want to fully.
No, we'd hate to embarrass anyone.
Right. So get it up there, get it going, get it revved up. And then we're going to watch Doctor Strange as we talk about it. We're not going to get through the entire movie, but we are going to have it on just to kind of remind us of stuff and guide us in the conversation. We'll probably make some references to things that won't make a whole lot of sense if you're not watching them, but we'll try to be as descriptive as possible. So with that being said, we've got ours fired up to 0000, and I am about to hit play in 3, 2, 1, play. As we see the familiar Marvel Studios logo pop up. And actually,
I was going to say, this one may not be as familiar. I don't know if
this is a relatively new one.
Yeah, I don't think it's the first time we've seen this one, but I got to say, jarring the first time I saw it, and now I kind of love it.
Yeah, me too.
Because really, as much inspiration as they take from the comics, we talked before numerous times about how the movies at this point have almost kind of forged their own legacy. They have just as much influence on the comics as the comics do on them at this point. And so to see something that honors their own legacy is really cool. And I think it was, this is finally the point where they've started to earn that, where it isn't as much built off the legacy of the comics, where Marvel Studios itself has become the brand,
Right, that's true. And I think some people, when it changed, were a little upset because the argument was, well, it's the one nod they give to the comics to show people a little bit of that comic book artwork and some of the classic images and things like that. Because, we've talked about how Marvel and DC have not served their comic divisions well with regards to using the movies to promote the comics. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I agree with you. I think the MCU is its own animal, and I think that it is iconic at this point, and these are the iconic portrayals of these characters. So it's a really nice opening logo to put up there. Fanfare. The music has almost become iconic at this point.
Yeah. Which
is something that we had criticized Marvel for just a few years ago, is that their music has not managed to reach that iconic level. But at least that has, to me. That's when I hear that, I know that a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is incoming, and it's probably going to be pretty good.
Yep. So I guess we should talk about this movie in particular, right?
Yes. This movie is a movie that is introducing a character for the very first time, Doctor Strange, to the big screen. Now, Doctor Strange is one of the older Marvel characters. He was invented the Silver Age by good old Stan Lee and co. I think Steve Ditko and Stan Lee created him. And it was a chance to introduce magic into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We had seen technology with Iron Man. We had seen the supernatural, if you will, with Thor. We had seen the cosmic with Guardians of the Galaxy. And now we're getting into the magic side of the MCU with a character who has a long and storied history in Marvel with some of the weirdest and indeed, dare I say it, strangest comics in Marvel history from the 60s and 70s, to a character that has at times been a little difficult to handle, I think. Not a lot of what I would call iconic runs on Doctor Strange comics over the years, after the Ditko era in particular. And you have to take this character from the get-go. You have to make him identifiable and introduce him to a new audience. They did not do a backdoor introduction to him in another movie. They're going and starting from scratch. And it is directed by Scott Derrickson. Now, Nick, do you know anything about Scott Derrickson, or did you going into this? Because I had seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose,
right,
which was probably his most prominent film before this, arguably, and I actually like that movie a lot. He's a horror director primarily, but kind of an interesting choice by Marvel, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that was an intentional choice on their part, pulling somebody from the horror world to do this film. Because while it isn't a horror film, it does have a different sensibility about it in terms of, the visual aspect of it and some of the occult stuff they're going to be delving into. So I think that choice was largely symbolic, if that makes any sense, to try and say to people, hey, this is how we're trying to set this movie apart from the other MCU movies, because at this point the MCU had started to, encounter some criticisms from some people about a feeling of sameness, especially as it related to their individual films. So, not as familiar with them as you were. I had seen, what's that one? The remake. God almighty. The Day the Earth Stood Still. I think he did that, or was involved with that.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Yes, he directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, and I was not a fan of that. I did not see Exorcism of Emily Rose, even though I wanted to. I did not see Sinister, even though I did not want to. So I didn't see that one because I didn't want to, because that makes sense.
Even though I didn't want to.
Even though I didn't want to, I didn't see it. So yeah, I knew who he was, but I was not overly familiar with a lot of his work.
Yeah, and so kind of an interesting choice. And in the writing department, the screenplay is written by, John Spates and Scott Derrickson, the director, and C. Robert Cargill, which is a great name.
Mm-hmm. John Spates is also responsible for, if I'm not mistaken, the initial draft of what wound up becoming Prometheus, the one that was scrapped so that Damon Lindelof could come on and do his take on it.
I know you love you some Damon Lindelof.
Yeah, people keep telling me that I need to see The Leftovers on HBO, but I have feelings on Damon Lindelof and his ability to complete stories, essentially.
I did eat some leftovers last night too, and they were delicious. But speaking of delicious, Doctor Strange represents something of a delicious opportunity, when you say, for a director, because of the...
No, I would not say that, because I don't agree with your ham-fisted transition.
Ham-fisted. Ham is a delicious meat as well.
Depends on the context of the ham.
Really? Tell me more.
Okay, deli ham, for example. Cold, thinly sliced, almost see-through deli ham. Disgusting.
Oh, come on. Not disgusting.
Now, thick, honey-baked Thanksgiving ham, you know what I mean? Like the big
delicious,
slices.
yeah, with
fantastic.
Yeah.
But the thin deli stuff, can't stand it.
You don't like deli ham?
I don't. Never have.
What kind of deli meat do you like?
Roast beef. I'm a big fan of roast beef.
See, I don't like roast beef.
When you can find it, it's not as common as sliced turkey, but I think sliced chicken is delicious.
It's fine, yeah.
And probably, controversially, my favorite deli meat of all, bologna.
Turkey? Oh my God.
Bologna.
That is controversial. Bologna is nasty.
Bologna is wonderful.
You know what that is, Nick? It's a bunch of malarkey.
Mike Mularkey, former Falcons offensive coordinator and Jacksonville Jaguars head coach.
Mike Dubose, former Alabama head coach and clap expert.
Mike Price, former Alabama head coach and frequent visitor to Arity's Angels in Pensacola, Florida.
Vincent Price, famed horror actor.
This is so much better than doing a Doctor Strange podcast. Let's just do this all night. David Price, current starting pitcher for the Boston Red Sox.
David Wells, fat pitcher for a bunch of teams.
Harrison Wells, character on The Flash.
Harrison Ford, actor extraordinaire and crotchety old man.
Ford Fairlane, character in a movie that I've never seen.
I don't have anything for that, but Morgan Fairchild.
What the hell does Morgan Fairchild have to do with anything?
Hall at the same time as Macho Man Randy Savage.
This is ridiculous. You are clearly violating the principle of what we've had going there.
There's no one, because no one's ever been named Fairlane. In the history of mankind, there's never been someone named Fairlane, except for that stupid Andrew Dice Clay movie.
Which I've never seen, as we just discussed. Anyway, Doctor Strange.
Yeah, so what I meant by it as an enticing opportunity is you're introducing the very concept of magic, and with it, a chance to be very unique and distinctive, rather, with your visuals, with your visual approach to the film, which has been another, I think, critique of Marvel films, is that the action set pieces have not been interesting at times. They've not done as well with crafting iconic action scenes outside of the Avengers films and the Captain America films. So it was an opportunity for a fresh start. So where should we begin with this? Should we tackle the plot first, their approach to Doctor Strange, or should we go into the cast first?
Well, this movie's been going for a little bit, so let's just kind of take it, kind of hit the things that we've already seen. This movie, a few minutes ago, you saw open up with an introduction to the villain first, interestingly enough, which is, especially for this movie, as we'll discuss, an interesting thing to do because the villain is not the strongest in the history of the MCU pantheon. In fact, I would go as far as to argue that the villain is the film's biggest and most glaring weakness.
Yes, it's Mads Mikkelsen, who people may remember as Le Chiffre from Casino Royale, or as Hannibal Lecter on the television series Hannibal.
Yes.
Who is I think everyone would agree, a very strong and talented actor, correct?
Yes, I would agree, yeah. Particularly, I mean, he really won me over. As much as I liked him as Le Chiffre, I was, as Greg will tell you, as against the idea of a Hannibal Lecter television show as probably anyone could have been at that time, and he completely sold me on the idea of it within the course of like 4 episodes. His portrayal of that character was that great. Did not try to do an Anthony Hopkins impersonation. Totally gave it his own spin, and yet his own spin was able to work and stand alone distinctly from the iconic Anthony Hopkins version. And it just showed me how much range and ability he had over the 3 seasons of that show. So when they announced him as being in this movie, I became much more intrigued by this film than I initially was.
I was too. Because I was excited about Mikkelsen's portrayal of a character named Caecilius. Mm-hmm. Now, apparently, Caecilius is a character in the comics.
Yes, apparently.
But
this is going to be one of those Guardians of the Galaxy-like situations, by the way, people, where Greg and I have no knowledge, I mean zero knowledge of the comics on which this is based. So if you're looking for a film-to-comics comparison or analysis of the accuracy of this film in terms of adopting the source material, we have none to offer you. So it's really just going to be about the film itself.
Yes, I have absolutely nothing. I have read a grand total, Nick, of 0 Doctor Strange comics.
I believe I have read maybe 15, but most of those are from the Silver Age, and then like 3 issues of the most recent Jason Aaron Doctor Strange run, just because I love Jason Aaron, but like nothing that lends me to speak on the character with any sort of expertise.
Yeah, so I should mention, though, that despite the criticism of the villain, because this villain of Caecilius is as paper-thin and one-dimensional as there's ever been in the MCU. I mean, you take Aldrich Killian or Malekith the Accursed or Ronan the Accuser, and you take them and you say, oh, they're paper-thin characters, and they pretty much are, but none to me as uninteresting and devoid of positive elements as Caecilius. Just not compelling in any manner, not convincing. There's no they tell you a backstory for him, but they don't show you, and they don't give you a reason to care about his backstory. So it's not nearly as effective as, say, Zemo.
Which really sucks, because as we'll discuss, I think the backstory they are attempting to tell you is actually a really interesting backstory, and it actually has a lot of parallels to something. I don't know, Greg, if we're going to get too much into this. You know, this movie and Guardians of the Galaxy are the two Marvel movies that I was most upset by liking, I think, because I felt like they lifted direct story elements that could have very easily made for a fantastic cosmic-based DC film in the future. And the Cassilia subplot here actually has some aspects that I would love to see in a Green Lantern movie one day, but people, I'm afraid, will now accuse it of being, of all things, a fucking Doctor Strange ripoff.
Right. There are a lot of elements to that could work, but again, they hint at his backstory, and they tell you his backstory, but they don't show you. They don't. You know, he talks about his family dying, but without seeing his family or knowing this character before he turns into what he becomes, there's no reason to care about the fact that his family died. Big whoop. Like, a lot of characters in the MCU's families have died. Virtually all of them, in fact. So, you know, it just lacks any panache or any attraction. Plus, he's playing this very bland, uninteresting character in general. He doesn't get to be very charismatic, or he doesn't get to choose scenery the way that Loki can.
He gets like maybe 3 to 5 like really dry, sarcastic quips in the movie that are probably the only moments where he's really allowed to show any personality at all.
Right.
It makes you,
and he's not allowed to really emote at the level that Zemo would, for instance,
exactly.
in Civil War.
I agree with that. Yep.
So, but nevertheless, despite saying all that, that opening sequence is one of my favorite in the movie.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
an opening action sequence with the Ancient One against the villains.
Yep.
It's incredible. This movie, as I'll get into later, this movie is very much a panache of better films.
Yes, I agree with that.
Christopher Nolan films at that. There's a little bit of The Prestige in it. There's a lot of Inception, and there's a lot of Batman Begins, and a little bit of Iron Man. Not a Chris Nolan movie, but the opening sequence is incredibly inspired, obviously inspired by Inception, but it's really freaking cool.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You know, and that's one thing I think we'll disagree on a little, or not disagree on, because I agree with your point. Like, it definitely has a lot of Nolan going on here. But I think for me, personally, if there's one director, if you're going to rip off from him, that I'm not going to be too upset about you ripping off, it's Chris Nolan, because there's nobody better in Hollywood, in my opinion. So I'm fine with sitting down to watch a Marvel movie that essentially is trying to do things through the lens of Chris Nolan. Makes me wish they had just gotten Chris Nolan, but I understand why that's impossible. But getting to see homages to Inception was really cool, and I got to say that, like you said, that opening sequence when the buildings start turning and they're running down the side of the buildings, and even the part where you get kind of like the space, you know, the actual air starting to like fracture like a mirror, all of that stuff was really cool, and it kind of sets this tone for the movie that, while certain elements of it may not deliver, I think, to me anyway, the one thing that is fantastic throughout is the visuals. I think this is one of the more visually stunning Marvel movies that they've done to date.
It's got some great visual sequences on it, for sure. I think that, and especially there's a few that we'll probably talk about because we'll probably run across them before we get done talking about this. But yeah, I would agree that it's very, very good visually, and in fact, on the big screen in particular, it was very impressive visually and interesting and wild and crazy. And I think the visuals are unquestionably the best part of this film to me. And it sets the tone right out of the gate with that opening scene. I thought it was great. It introduces us to Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One, and there was some controversy about her casting that I don't think we're going to get into on this, or are we? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think we kind of have to address it. You know, it's something that was brought up during the film because, in the course of casting this film, there were some legitimate concerns about how to handle the character of the Ancient One, because the Ancient One, much like the Mandarin in Iron Man, has often been accused of being a offensive stereotype of Asian culture. And so, Marvel, in an attempt to subvert to get away from that, wound up reimagining the character, not just as not an elderly Asian man, but instead as a middle-aged white woman. However, this left them receiving criticism for the change, because while people didn't want it to be a stereotype of Asian culture, they still, I think, were expecting an Asian actor to get to play that role, because there aren't many of these Marvel Cinematic Universe parts that are written for Asian characters, and it felt like an example of taking away an opportunity for more representation, even though I think their initial intent had a positive mindset behind it.
Right, and you said instead of casting an Asian man, they cast a what woman?
A white woman.
There we go. Thank you. And so there were some legitimate complaints about that going in, but I will say that, in my opinion, Tilda Swinton puts in a fine performance as the Asian one, and in fact was pretty magnetic. I thought every time that she was on screen, she was compelling. She was interesting. She was charismatic in a silent kind of way, and and she's a badass, an absolute badass.
I agree with all of that, to the point that I think she gives the second best performance in the film, in my opinion.
I agree completely. She's excellent in this one. And when we leave that opening scene is when we get to the first of what I think is the movie's ultimate downfall relative. And again, I feel like we have to give this disclaimer every time one of us has something negative to say about a Marvel film. And I'll go ahead and give it this time for this one the way you did for Iron Man 3.
And for
I don't think this is a bad movie. In fact, I think it's a good movie. It's an entertaining movie. That being said, that's just to get that out of the way, because I'm going to be very critical of this one, because it is probably, and we'll talk about our rankings at the end, but it is going to be near the bottom of my list of Marvel movies because of a few things. But the number one problem is Stephen Strange himself.
This is probably going to be our biggest disagreement, I think, when it comes to this film, is our respective feelings towards Stephen Strange as a character and Benedict Cumberbatch's performance.
Yes. Yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch plays the role of Stephen Strange, and I think most people out there know who Benedict Cumberbatch is. Sherlock from the British series. What else has Cumberbatch been in? Spock, right? Spock.
He was Khan.
Khan.
Or excuse me, spoiler.
Dadgummit.
Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness. But actually, I think my personal favorite role that I've seen him in prior to this was a voice role he did as the voice of the dragon Smaug in what I felt like was the finest of the Hobbit trilogy of films that Peter Jackson made, that one being The Desolation of Smaug. So that was, I thought he was electric as a voice actor can possibly be. He was phenomenal in that film, in my opinion. It made me instantly look forward to seeing this even more once I saw that film.
And, of course, he received an Academy Award nomination for The Imitation Game.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in...
Was that before this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was, 2014. He also was in the classic Zoolander 2.
Which I still haven't seen.
I haven't either. Although I was interested in it until everybody said it was terrible, but I'm still going to watch it at some point. But that's beside the point. The point is Benedict Cumberbatch, or as I call him to our friend Miranda, Benedict Cumberbun, is a good and established actor.
Thanks to his work on Sherlock, has kind of developed something of a reputation in the nerd community at this point. I remember when this casting was announced, a lot of people were very, very excited.
Yeah. Almost to a person, we're very excited about it. Now, there's two issues with this. We've established that Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor, or at least a very good actor. I'll approach the character first, and then I will approach the performance second. Okay? And we can get into that from there. So the character of Stephen Strange, again, I don't know anything about the comic book character. It's not like a Tony Stark situation where I felt comfortable saying the comic book character was boring until the movie made him interesting. I can't say that about Stephen Strange. All I can say is the character that's presented here, who comes off to me as discount Tony Stark. He's got the same exact character arc in this movie that Tony has in the first Iron Man. The exact same character arc. Here's the difference. Not as funny, not as quick-witted, not as charismatic, not as understandably prickish. And what I mean by that is Tony Stark, when we first meet him, is a prick. Absolutely. An asshole, a jerk, everything under the sun. But we are given good reasons why he is the way that he is as well. So that there's enough there that when he starts chipping away at that and he starts changing, you get the idea that underneath this exterior is this good-hearted man who has allowed himself to become something that he thinks is a reflection of his father. Now, with Stephen Strange, we don't really get that. We just get an asshole. A guy who is an arrogant rich guy that is good at his job but uses that as an excuse to fuel his own ego and outright refuses to help people if it doesn't basically fillet his ego. He is intentionally made that way, I understand, because they're trying to tell the character's arc of how he grows from that over the course of the film. And in my opinion, and yours very well may differ, but my view of this film has been that, and continues to be, I've watched it 4 times now, and I feel the same today that I did when I first watched it, which is that none of his character development feels earned to me. It feels like ultimately he's forced into this situation by his own ego, and it's incredibly self-serving. He has to, quote, find Zen during the course of the movie, but again, ultimately in a self-serving manner. And by the end of the movie, I don't buy that this person was there the whole time because I never got an indication of it. I just saw Dick, Stephen Strange at the beginning. And again, maybe if I hadn't seen this already done better in Iron Man, it wouldn't bother me as much as it does. But the character is just not as interesting as Tony Stark, and you're asking me to invest in a less charismatic version of a character that I already didn't like when I first met him. Well, I did like Tony Stark, only because he was funny and he was charismatic. Stephen Strange isn't. He comes off like House, which is what they're going for clearly in the beginning of this movie with the surgeon stuff. They're trying to put him across as this Dr. House type character, complete with the accent. The problem is he's not as charismatic as House. He's not as funny as House. And because of that, you lose that connection, and there's not that basic humanity there. I feel like in this movie, there is just that light switch moment where suddenly Stephen Strange realizes, hey, I need to not be so selfish anymore so I can get my hands back. And then he grows from there. But I think the movie's very clunky with how it tells its story, personally.
There are aspects of that I can agree with, especially as it relates to him being a less charismatic version of Tony Stark, because, there are definitely a lot of similarities between those two characters, and every character in the MCU is less charismatic than Tony Stark, That is a benchmark that has never been surpassed since the first Iron Man movie. So I can understand that criticism to a certain degree. Where I will disagree with you a little bit is I do find some entertainment here. He is undoubtedly a dick and an asshole, and he's a more authentic dick and asshole because it's not done in an entertaining fashion. He's just a dick and an asshole, and there are things about that I can appreciate. I'll put it that way. I think maybe that's part of the reason that Stephen Strange doesn't bug me as much as he does you.
But you're more entertaining than Stephen Strange.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. That you don't mean that, but thank you anyway.
I do.
You make me blush. You're making me swoon over here on these airwaves. But in any event, I do think there is some entertainment, though. I think there is something in his much drier and much more subtle humor. It's not the quippy Tony Stark stuff, but there is some humor in this film, I thought. as it relates.
There is some. I agree, but I think most of it is playing off of Wong.
Yes, which is right, which is true, because he's finally found in Wong like the guy who can like cut him down. You know what I mean? And it serves part of the story that I think, and part of the other thing that I think we'll disagree about is I think the story kind of works because I think it shows you this man who arguably is more egotistical than Tony Stark, because it's not just that he's trying to cover up this good person underneath. It's almost like there isn't a good person there because he's been wholly consumed by ego. And over the course of this film, you see him broken down. And Wong is kind of one of the last guys that serves to chop him down those final few inches or whatever, and then he has to, be built back up. Is it overly effective? No. But I think ultimately it holds together for me more than it does for you.
Yeah, and again, I do think it's a good movie, and I think it's a good movie with the problem that the lead character is one of the least interesting characters in the movie to me. I was much more invested in the Ancient One, much more invested in Mordo than I was in Doctor Strange.
I would agree about being more invested in Mordo and the Ancient One. That's not a disagreement. To me, though, I think Cumberbatch still gives a pretty good performance with what he's given, and I would say he and Wong are right there together, I think, in terms of probably the third best performance in this film.
I would rank him behind Wong personally on my list, and honestly, from a performance standpoint, and I know you're going to disagree with me on this, but I think I'm going to explain myself in a minute. I would put him behind Rachel McAdams.
I completely disagree with that.
Yes, and here's why.
Okay,
I think Rachel McAdams
let's pause this discussion for a moment to recognize arguably the most visually stunning sequence in this film.
This is great because it's got elements of the Steve Ditko comics
this is
from
remarkable.
the 60s. It was so trippy and so weird, and now we get just madness here.
This sequence here alone almost makes it, you and I both saw this together, and we saw it in 3D, and I would argue it might be the only Marvel film that is actually...
Now he's in the Phantom Zone.
Oh, God, that is actually better in 3D than it is in 2D, specifically for sequences like this.
Yeah, he went through the Phantom Zone there. He went through the Beetlejuice world, it seemed. Just really, really cool stuff here. But, here's my issue. I mentioned the character is limiting because it's almost a direct copy of a better character that's already been done. But on top of that, I don't love Cumberbatch's performance, and I realize that every time I watch this. Like, he's fine. He's not awful. He gives a competent performance, but I think he could have brought so much more to this. And I think, I'll be honest, right from the get-go, I don't love his accent. I think his American accent is not incredibly convincing. I think that it's a weird casting choice from the standpoint of, yes, there's a lot of British actors playing Americans in the MCU and vice versa, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like you could have found somebody with a more authentic accent to play this character that would have maybe had more of that slice of New York that they're kind of portraying in the comics with Doctor Strange. And I think that, he's fine, he's competent, he's capable, and I think he'll be better in movies going forward. But I don't get invested when I watch him. We talked about Robert Downey Jr. adding a new element to Tony Stark, Chris Evans adding a new element to Captain America, Hemsworth to Thor, and go down the list of MCU casting choices, really. Peter Quill, for God's sake, but I don't. This is one of the few MCU casting choices that, while I don't feel it's a bad casting choice, I feel that it's an underwhelming casting choice compared to the rest because I don't think the actor adds anything to the character.
Yeah, I disagree with that for sure. Is it as good as Chris Pratt or Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or Robert Downey? No, it's not that good, but I still think it's a really good performance. I think it's a really good casting choice. I actually kind of like the accent. It's not... You're already going to have Steve Rogers and Peter Parker doing that kind of New York-esque accent, and yes, I understand that the Marvel Cinematic Universe's deal is that it all revolves around New York. I get that. But I didn't need another one of those in the MCU. So, while the accent is different, I kind of like it.
Every time I hear him talk, I just keep remembering the Family Guy bit about Liam Neeson's American accent, which I also think is fine. But it must be 2, maybe 3 fortnights before we'll make it. It's just, I don't know. It stands out to me for some reason. But that being said, again, just passable performance in my opinion. So that's hurdle number 1 that this movie has for me is I just can't get into the main character. Now, we're seeing on screen right now the best character in the movie, and I think you'd agree with me.
Yes. Which
is Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yes.
As Mordo, who is, in the comics, of course, Doctor Strange's mortal enemy, but here we get to see him in the role of Thal Sinestro.
Yeah. Yeah, we get to see him in the role of Thal Sinestro, who has placed his entire unwavering faith in a higher power, only to have that power, basically betray him, and him feel justified in turning against that power near the end. So it's very frustrating to see this relationship play out for Green Lantern fans. At least, maybe nobody else made that comparison the way we did, but man, this is damn it is all I can say.
It was almost a slap in the face given what we got in 2011. But
yeah, and the thing is, like we say that as a compliment. We don't say that as a criticism of this film.
Yes, absolutely.
We say that as a compliment because this did the Sinestro Hal Jordan dynamic better than Green Lantern did it in 2011, and that sucks that that's the case. But he was that good and that believable, and when you get that separation between these two at the end. I know maybe you disagree because of your level of investment in Stephen Strange, but you feel it. Like, it definitely feels like something that matters and something that has been earned.
Yes, and I think that's one area it does is telling that is the most compelling story that this movie tells. The story of the loyal soldier who honestly is responsible his powers in the first sense, if not for more, the ancient one will leave us and Strange out of the streets into their fold, and so you have this mentor-mentee relationship, and it get flipped on the head about the fact that what begins. Not being exactly forthright about a thing that she's taught her pupils. And this killer, to the point where if they did a more spin-off movie, I would watch it and probably love it, because he is a character that I can understand. A character with a multi-dimensional backstory where he's not it's not simple say he's just an asshole who changes into a good person again. He's a complicated who is driven by noble purpose, who has that flipped on his head and finds out that everything he's believed in has been wrong. But he still has that strong moral code that is guiding his actions. Just a great portrayal here, too. One of my favorite recent performances, I would say, in the MCU is Mordo here. And again, another character I don't know anything about the comics. I just know that this version of Mordo was compelling, perhaps because I'm a big fan of Sinestro. But I just think there's something to be said for that, the slow burn. If you're going to build a villain character, which he clearly will be in the future, giving it that slow burn to make us care about this relationship and care about where it starts and where it ends.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. He is magnetic. He is electrifying. As much as I like this film better than you do, I think we both agree that our excitement level for the inevitable sequel is much higher than it was for this one, just because the promise of seeing that Baron Mordo story pay off in a follow-up film.
Mm-hmm. It also opens the door for my idea of the Barons all coming together. Of course, Mordo, Zemo, von Strucker back from the dead, and of course Von Raschke.
Yeah, so he had a bald head that you could grease up and stick anywhere, just about, according to certain individuals.
Absolutely, and the master of the Iron Claw.
Indeed.
Now we also are seeing here in this scene Benedict Wong as Wong.
As Wong, yes,
and which had to be easy for him to remember his lines. You know, you didn't have to worry about people referring to him by a different name. So he is great here. Wong is another one of these. To me, this movie's two greatest achievements would be Mordo and Wong in terms of additions to the MCU, more so than Strange, in my opinion. And
more so than the Ancient One, even?
More so than the Ancient One, yes.
Okay.
I like the Ancient One, but I don't know. Like I guess I could throw the Ancient One in there, but the difference is the Ancient One is a one and done concept, whereas Wong and Mordo are in a position potentially. We'll see what happens in Infinity War, but potentially to contribute for years to come. So I feel like they're strong additions moving forward. In this movie, the Ancient One is awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Ahead of Wong for sure. But Wong is a great comic relief here because he's this really like straight and stoic character that plays off of the arrogant Stephen Strange in a very compelling manner. And we do at one point get my beloved Mr. Strange, Dr. Strange joke, which is good. But yeah, really good stuff here. And the visuals here are, even if I would argue that scene was unnecessary, it was really cool to watch. What we just saw with Caecilius walking through the chamber and inexplicably turning everything into curves.
I got the impression that he had just been imbued with some power from Dormammu, and so he was like testing out how powerful he was or something like that. That's kind of what I took it as.
Just showing what he's doing. And now it's the age-old comic book idea of you have to use your hands to do everything. You know, anybody familiar with the old X-Men cartoon remembers that Professor Xavier, has to massage his temples in order to use his telepathic abilities. And it's the way it is in all comic book adaptations, really, where even if you have a mental power that wouldn't require your hands at all, you have to actually use your hands to do stuff. And they do a good job of explaining, I think, the powers on here and how they work. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's a magic film. You know, it's definitely out there, but they try to ground it as much as you possibly can and explain how this is actually pulled off. I know the sling ring, to my knowledge anyway, is not something that is from the comics, but they kind of introduced here, and it kind of works. I like the visual aspect of it. I like all this kind of casting stuff they're doing. This is another thing I think we disagree on. Like, this whole training sequence of the film is at least visually interesting to me, and you get some good Wong bits in here, so I think it works for me a little bit better than it does for you.
Yeah, I think I find a lot of it really boring, is the problem. Like, the training sequences I'm not interested in, and the sling ring, I'm not as big on sling ring as you are. I think it was kind of like this, I don't really understand why you would need it. And that's one aspect that I didn't really love. But this scene is good. I like that. This was my favorite part of the training sequence, is he gets stranded out here on this mountaintop.
Mount Everest.
And left there. And the Ancient One is confident he'll find his way back. But Mordo is not so confident. It starts to get worried. And then the Ancient One starts to get worried, which is a really good, to me, a really good, funny bit. Any second now, yeah. It's a good bit, so I enjoyed that. And there are several other aspects of this movie that I enjoy, and that's one of them. And there are the stuff with Wong is good. I think it drags out a little bit. I think that's one thing we also disagree on, is I think this whole portion of the movie is longer than it needs to be. I think we get the idea pretty quickly, and if you're taking ideas from Batman Begins, I think the length of the training it feels a lot longer here than it was in Batman Begins, even if it isn't. It feels that way because of the pacing, I think. And, Batman Begins does the sort of mirrored timelines thing where you have Bruce returning to Gotham while you're also simultaneously seeing his training with the League of Assassins or what have you, League of Shadows. And so here they're going very chronological with it all, and it kind of here we do see him shaved down to the classic Doctor Strange goatee, which is good, but I don't know. There's those elements are unique, but Wong's a good humorous character in here. Now we have to talk about the another glaring weakness in the film, which is the character of Christine Palmer, played by Rachel McAdams, which I said earlier, I think she gives a better performance than Cumberbatch, and I will explain that in just a moment. But there is no defending this character, right? I mean, this is the most glaring example, even over Natalie Portman in the Thor movies. This is the most glaring example to me of a female character who is woefully underserved by the writing, to the point that she's almost a caricature of a female supporting character in a movie.
I would agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with her being below Natalie Portman. I think they're on pretty equal footing, but I will agree it's an issue.
Not in terms of performance, but in terms of the character.
I'm talking about in terms of the characterization as well. And we'll address the performance in a minute. In terms of characterization, I think they're closer to even footing than you're making out, but it is problematic to say the least.
Yeah, she has no function in this movie except to get yelled at by Doctor Strange and to help Doctor Strange. Mm-hmm. And that's it. No other function whatsoever. She is not established as a particularly competent physician. She is not established as a particularly strong woman or character in general. This is the part that bugs me about this movie, I think, maybe more than anything else. Even over the kind of cliched story and all that stuff, what bothers me the most about this movie is there is nothing given to indicate why she is interested in Doctor Strange. Because he treats her like garbage, first of all. There is not any scene that we're given that shows him treating her with love or compassion or respect. So, Jane Foster is drawn to Thor because Thor is literally a god from above that she's never seen before, and there's a fascination there, and he grows to treat her with respect and with love. Pepper Potts is drawn to Tony because of his charisma and because she sees a side of him that nobody else sees. Who else is there in the MCU that I'm missing? Those are kind of the two obvious examples, but of course, either of the Carters are drawn to Captain America because he's the best person. So
yes, they're drawn to him because he's the best person, and not because he has a 12-pack.
Well, maybe an 11-pack.
Come on, let's all these guys, they're drawn to him for these personality aspects and the fact that they're smoking hot guys. Come on, Greg.
Well, yeah, that too, but that's not the only reason. In this movie, there is nothing there to indicate why this character of Christine Palmer, who appears by all measure to be a loving, caring person, is in love with Doctor Strange, because he's an asshole. And the only way, and it's evident that this movie was written by dudes, because only dudes would write a woman in that way. So it's extremely irksome to me that's her role in this movie. And unlike a Lois Lane, even in Richard Donner's Superman, where she fawns over Superman so much, Lois is also established as a strong woman and a good reporter that is really good at her job. And that's not really the case here in this movie. She helps Doctor Strange at one point because he coaches her how. And it's very, very disconcerting, in my opinion.
Well, she is. They make a point of the film of mentioning that she's a nurse, not a surgeon. So it's not like, I believe in that aspect.
No.
They're talking about moving things, through the human body and stuff, which may not be her specialty. So that part doesn't irk me as much as it does you. I think the intention was, they make vague reference to this, that Stephen Strange at one point was a good person, that he had more noble motivations for getting into medicine before he became wholly consumed by ego. They don't do a very good job of showing that at all. But I think the implication that I always got from it is that she fell in love with him when he was a good person, and they became estranged over the years due to his shift in ego.
Sure, yeah, I guess they do a horrible job of portraying that, and then he just I don't know, it's not believable to me in any way, and it frustrates me. Now, I really like her performance, and the reason I say that is I think that whenever she's on screen, she has heart. She appears like she's giving it her full effort, like she's trying to express these emotions that they're writing for her to have, even though it doesn't make sense why she would have them. I think that she gives 100% in the role. Not to say that Cumberbatch didn't, but I would argue that she does her best to elevate a horrendous character and make it at least, watchable. Whereas Cumberbatch just takes a average character and keeps him at that average level to me.
Yeah, I will disagree with that in terms of the comparison to Cumberbatch. I think the stronger comparison that I'd like to make, the callback earlier, is we talked about Natalie Portman's Jane Foster. And whereas Natalie Portman's Jane Foster is a terribly written character that is given a lazy and phoned-in performance, I agree with you that Rachel McAdams tries really hard, and the character that is written there doesn't deserve her level of effort. I will say she gives as great a performance as you possibly can, but I also think there's an element of, there's just something about Rachel McAdams, to me personally anyway, that has always been inherently more likable as an actress than Natalie Portman. So it's almost an unfair comparison. There's a level of charm and of accessibility to her, whereas Portman has always felt kind of cool. Leaves me a little cold with a lot of her portrayals.
A little detached at times,
right?
Depending on what the role is, and I think there's an element of likability to McAdams that is underserved in the film because of the character. So we've pretty well gone through the cast now. I also love what they're doing with what is it, the Eye of Agamotto, or what was I call the Eye of Agamemnon, which is not the title of it, but the Eye of Agamotto, right? Which we believe is the Time Stone.
I think it's officially I think Wong says that at one point, that it's an Infinity Stone.
I love the time effects on the apple. This was actually a portion of the movie that I loved in the theater. And even on rewatch, how you're seeing what he can do with manipulating time and things like that. Mm-hmm. And clearly not a fan of Hootie and the Blowfish, because he does believe in time.
Mm-hmm. And not a fan of 2006 era Greg Phillips, who argued that time does not exist.
Yes, a philosophy that I espoused because of my strong belief in the philosophy of Hootie and the Blowfish.
Mm. All right, then.
And who would have suspected that the lead singer of Hootie and the Blowfish, whose name was not Hootie, would go on to belt out such country hits as Wagon Wheel?
Tell you something. Let me give you a controversial statement. Ready for this, Greg?
I'm ready.
Solo country artist Darius Rucker sucks.
You know what, Nick? With a little love and some harmony. I don't remember the rest of it.
With a little love,
with
a little love and some harmony, he would go back to being in a band that was actually good and useful.
Oh, Oh, you just need to let him roll you over like a wagon wheel.
I heard Wagon Wheel years ago, and it was much better when Old Crow Medicine Show did it.
Old Crow Medicine Show. Listen to hipster country music fan Nick Duke.
Oh my God! There we go.
I liked it better when it was by this less popular act.
God,
that's when I liked it. I bet you liked Blue Suede Shoes by Carl Perkins more than the Elvis version too, huh?
Not even going to dignify that with a response there.
I'm just kidding. I don't like solo act Darius Rucker either. But that withstanding,
son of a bitch.
Visuals, paid by the numbers, asshole turns into good person story, magical, mystical, crazy stuff going on, cast of a few, and we've kind of gone through all that. This is actually something we need to talk about. Let's talk about Dormammu, the hidden villain of the film. Because...
Spoiler alert.
Because... well, I mean, people are watching the movie with us. I'm sure they've already seen it. Why would you want your first experience watching a movie to be listening to us prattle on about Darius Rucker and
Ford
Fairlane and bodily orifices? Which we haven't yet, but we will, I'm sure, at some point. So all the stuff about Caecilius we talked about, how bad he is and lame and corny, it's true. He's not good. But in the last, 20 minutes of the film, we get Dormammu. And while Dormammu himself is nothing special, let me talk about how much I love the climax of this movie. I think it is... Now, you know my stance on the film, Nick, but I think it is one of the very best, top, I would put it probably the top 5 or 6 best climaxes of any Marvel movie as far as a battle goes, because it's so original and creative.
Yeah,
it is not a generic battle. It is not a paint by the numbers, uninteresting fight that's not well choreographed like a lot of them are.
It's not even really a fight.
It's not even a fight.
Yeah.
It is a character having to use his noggin to outthink the enemy.
Yeah, it's weird to say because I'm praising it just as much as you are, but what we are actually seeing on screen isn't nearly as impressive as the concept of it. As as somebody, somewhere being in charge of a multi-million-dollar blockbuster and going, let's end the movie on this cerebral battle of wills, rather than an all-out series of fisticuffs. Like you said, it is one of the most inventive climaxes and closing sequences to a superhero movie in general that I have seen. I was a massive fan of this one, and it really you and I have disagreed on the quality of the film that comes up before that, but it leaves you walking out of the theater amazed at what they pull off in those closing 20 minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's creative. It is entertaining. It's interesting. It's funny. And in many ways, it's a kind of bold choice that I'm shocked we haven't seen in a Batman movie or in a movie featuring a more cerebral-oriented character before this. I thought it was wonderful. I think, and I also, by the way, love Doctor Strange's cape, who is another hidden character in the movie that is really good.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's a thing from the comics or not. Like I said, I don't have the knowledge, but the idea of the cape having a sentience unto itself, not unlike a magical artifact like a Mjolnir or something, is a cool idea to me.
Yeah. Or like Spawn's cape.
Yeah, there you go.
That is kind of its own entity. I thought that was really cool. So yeah, the Dormammu stuff at the end is excellent and makes up for a lot of what comes before it. Because if it was just what I described to you, I might go ahead and say that it's a bad movie to me or that I don't like it. But there's enough here that I do like that I can say that I do like the movie. And when I watched it with my parents, they both enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but they enjoyed it. And liked it probably more than I did. So yeah, I mean, is there anything else for us to talk about on this one, Nick, or have we pretty well hit it?
I think we should at least address, the twist in the movie as it relates to Caecilius. I think you talked about it a little bit with Baron Mordo, but the idea eventually that is revealed that the Ancient One has been siphoning power from the Dark Dimension the entire time, and that Caecilius, there's an argument to be made that Caecilius was right, in his decision to leave the Order and to turn against the Ancient One. That he has a legitimate reason to feel burned or to feel betrayed, and in turn that leads Baron Mordo to have many of the same feelings. And as we mentioned earlier, it's another aspect of the film that lends itself to a Green Lantern comparison. To draw the Secret Origins comparison from Jeff Johns' Green Lantern, it's almost like Caecilius is standing in the Atrocitus role, where he's saying, "Hey, the Guardians did these really bad and terrible things, and yet you place your unwavering loyalty in their decision making, but they aren't who they say they are." And then he's right. Like he winds up being right, and that's kind of the role that Caecilius plays here. And it just maybe eventually they'll release a special edition of this movie that has like bad CGI Green Lantern costumes over the top of all these characters and overdubbed dialogue, so that I can just get that instead.
I was going to say, I think Doctor Strange works as a movie better if you view it as a Green Lantern movie.
Yeah,
having talked this out with you, because I agree that the Atrocitus comparison is there, certainly. A Hal comparison between Strange and Hal, not totally. That doesn't work completely.
Yeah, that doesn't work as well, but as a stand-in, yeah.
And then, of course, Mordo and Sinestro are like the same in this movie. So, I agree. I think it's a good twist. It's an interesting twist. And again, that's one thing that you mentioned earlier that I will go ahead and piggyback on and say that, I am, as much as I have kind of like downplayed how much I like this movie, I am really into a sequel because of how good Mordo is, and because they got the generic origin story out of the way. They've done that. They had to do that. They've done it. We know who Doctor Strange is now, and now you can hit the ground running in a sequel. He's already got his characterization established. He's already got his supporting cast established. So now we're free to let loose of those shackles and just go full bore into Mordo and his story, and tell a potentially much more interesting story with Doctor Strange going forward. So I'm pretty excited about that, Nick.
I agree wholeheartedly. It is next to a Spider-Man Homecoming sequel and a Black Panther sequel, my most anticipated film of whatever will eventually be Phase 4. Just for the Baron Mordo aspect of it.
Right. That should be. I'm also interested to see Doctor Strange interact with other characters. Oh yes, we also need to talk about the post-credit scene here, right? There
are two of them. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what are they? I didn't get to those this rewatch.
So the one
of them is the Ragnarok teaser, right?
Yes, that actually shows up. The entire post-credit scene is actually in Thor Ragnarok as a scene itself, kind of aping the approach that they used in Ant-Man. If you remember, one of the post-credit scenes for Ant-Man is actually a scene in Civil War. So the scene that we're talking about is a scene where you see Doctor Strange sitting down with Thor to inquire about Loki being on Earth and how they can help to move him along. And it has the little visual gag of him magically refilling Thor's beer glass. And so it's a fun little interaction that was a teaser for Ragnarok. The other one is they bring back that character of Jonathan Pangborn from earlier in the film, the guy that was the guy who told Doctor Strange about Camartage. We see him at his job. He's there by himself. And Baron Mordo shows up and says, basically, you've been misusing magic. You've been using it for your own personal gain. And I'm here to take it away from you. And we see that he's gained this ability to take the magical power from people. And as he does it, we see Jonathan Pangborn revert to his disabled form, and he crumples to the floor because he can no longer walk, essentially. And it sets up this intriguing aspect of Mordo isn't necessarily going to be a villain out to destroy the world in the sequel. He's going to be a villain who is out to set things right in his mind.
Mm-hmm. To end the misuse of magic,
right?
In the Marvel universe. very compelling motivation for a villain. So, yeah, that's very cool. Well, all of that being said, final thoughts on this, and then we'll get to our rankings. As I said at the beginning, I think it's a solid, even a good movie, but it could have been a lot better. It could have been a lot more, and I think it suffers in my estimation because the lead character, I guess the most screen time, just does not connect with me.
Yeah, I think where I ultimately fall on it is I think it's an average movie from a character standpoint for the most part. I think you have some standout performances in here, particularly as we mentioned from Tilda Swinton and from Chiwetel Ejiofor. But those two performances coupled with some truly visually stunning moments, arguably, among the best visual moments in the MCU to this point, help to push it a little bit ahead for me of where you have it, while still not being worthy of a spot amongst the upper tier of the MCU pantheon.
Fair enough. And I do enjoy the visuals in the film, even though they are a little derivative at times. But yeah, I do enjoy them. And so now I guess it's time to get onto our list, Nick. Do we want to do the critical list first or our own personal list first?
You make the call, sir.
A little bit of a discrepancy in our... let's just lead off with our list, and then we'll let people know what the critics think. I can't help but notice that our two ranking lists appear to be a little bit off kilter here. You have more things than I do, it appears.
Yes, because I've gone ahead and I've gone ahead and entered Doctor Strange into the pantheon.
Into the pantheon. All right. Well, then you go first with your rankings, and then I'll.
All right, so let's see here. Let's see. There are now... This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th film to this point in the MCU. So I will go from 14 to 1, as we like to do, count it down. At number 14, I still have Ant-Man. At number 13, I have Iron Man 3. At number 12, I have The Incredible Hulk. At number 11, I have Thor: The Dark World. At number 10, I have Doctor Strange. So a bottom 5 MCU movie to this point for me, but not, at the very bottom as I feel you will probably have.
I am legitimately surprised by that, Nick. I thought you'd have firmly in the middle of your pack.
In the middle of my pack. No. The film that's right ahead of it at number 9 for me is, 14, 13... Well, 11. Yeah, at number 9 is Iron Man 2. And I gotta say, Iron Man 2 is probably the movie that was most helped by a rewatch thus far in this MCU effort we've done. So for me, I felt like there was...
I would agree with that.
I thought there was a clear distinction, for me anyway, between Iron Man 2 and Doctor Strange. I think, honestly, I think there's a couple of dividing, lines here where, these back 5 so far fall into a clear-cut tier for me. And then Iron Man 2 at number 9, Captain America, the First Avenger at number 8, Thor at number 7 is kind of another tier, a little mini-tier under itself. Those 3 films are squarely in the middle. And then you have the top 6 that are kind of a cut above those, with Iron Man at number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy at number 5, The Avengers at number 4, Avengers Age of Ultron at 3, Captain America Civil War at 2, and Captain America the Winter Soldier at number 1. Like I said, I think there are some clear lines that divide the tiers up for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. All right, so let's get cracking on mine. And how many of these did you say there were overall?
There are 14.
14. At number 14, I have Doctor Strange.
Okay.
At number 13, The Incredible Hulk. Followed by, at number 12, Thor: The Dark World. 11 is Thor. 10 is Captain America, the First Avenger. 9 is Ant-Man. 8 is Iron Man. 7 is Iron Man 3. 6 is Iron Man 2. 5 is Avengers Age of Ultron. 4 is Guardians of the Galaxy. 3 is The Avengers. 2 is Captain America the Winter Soldier. And 1 is Captain America Civil War.
Now, here's the part of this entire Doctor Strange exercise that I've kind of been looking forward to the most, and that's where we're going to talk about the critical response to this film. So let's go to our critical rankings, which I will remind everyone is a combination of the Rotten Tomatoes critical score, the Metacritic score, and the IMDb score, all on 1 to 100 scales, meaning a possible total of 300 points. So here we go from 14 to 1. At number 14, Thor: The Dark World with 190 points. At number 13, The Incredible Hulk with 196 points. At number 12, Iron Man 2 with 200 points. At number 11, Thor with 204 points. At number 10, Iron Man 3 with 214 points. At a tie for 8th, Avengers Age of Ultron and Captain America the First Avenger, each with 215 points. At number 7, Ant-Man with 219 points. At number 6, all the way up at number 6, Greg, Doctor Strange with 236 points. I will point out, just a single point behind the number 5 film, Captain America the Winter Soldier, according to the critics.
Wow.
At number 4, The Avengers at 242 points. At number 3, Captain America Civil War with 244 points. At number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy with 248 points. And still at number 1 with 252 points, Iron Man. So Greg, your reaction to the overall critical rankings and more specifically where Doctor Strange falls in this critical pantheon.
I don't get it, Big Dan. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I find it impossible to believe that it would have a higher Metacritic score than Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It's just I don't know how everybody's got their own taste. It's all subjective. None of this is objective crap, and it's ultimately just popcorn entertainment anyway. But I don't know how you could watch The Winter Soldier and then watch Doctor Strange afterwards and think that those two movies are even in the same ballpark.
I will point out it also has a higher Metacritic score than The Avengers as well.
And again, don't know how you can watch the two movies back to back and think that they're even in the same ballpark, but that's just me. I know those who disagree. This movie has its staunch supporters out there, but it shocks me. It legitimately shocks me.
And actually, Greg, I just noticed this. The IMDb score is voted on by fans. If you were to just take the two critical scores out of this, they would Doctor Strange and the Avengers would actually be tied with one another, and it would be ahead of Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Wow.
So, certainly a unique situation. I like the film more than you do, but I even agree with you that having it that high in terms of a critical reception is a little suspect in my opinion. And I think the only thing I can think of is that critics were desperate for some kind of visual distinction when it came to the MCU, and just getting even a small taste of that was enough to satiate whatever desire they had for that and push it over the top. So
yeah,
there you have it, folks. Greg and I both are actually lower on this film, it turns out, than the critics are, at least in terms of comparing it to the rest of the MCU.
And perhaps lower on it than you are, as a listener.
Yeah, and perhaps lower on it than you are as a listener. That's a great point. Let us know your thoughts on Doctor Strange individually, and also where it stacks up for you in the MCU pantheon. I know we've already talked to, last time we had Hard Travelers for Hire, one of our esteemed guests, Tim Capel, had thoughts on Doctor Strange. I think he'll probably agree with you that it's at or near the bottom. And it's crazy because kind of throughout this show, I've played the role of defending this film, and even I still have it as a bottom 5 MCU film. And not to tell tales out of skew, but I don't see that changing given the films that are coming up the next few months in Hard Travelers for Hire.
Right. And I think it speaks to the overall quality of the MCU that a movie that both of us enjoy and like as a movie ranks at or near the bottom of each of our lists. So yeah, I mean, and like in your case, it's a movie that you've staunchly defended during the podcast, but yet it's near the bottom of your list. And on a similar note, it's a movie that I have at the bottom of my list, but yet it's one that I've very much enjoyed. Thor: The Dark World, which I was in the position of, being pretty hard on, is another movie that I really enjoy. And these movies are at the bottom of my list, which to me is less about those movies doing things wrong and more about all these other movies doing so many things right.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And, I'm really excited to see where we go from here, because I think we're starting to enter that period of MCU films that we haven't seen as much of the other ones, and we're also entering a period of the MCU where it just seems like they've gone from consistently good movies to arguably consistently great ones. Pretty much starting with next month's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Let me use this analogy for you, Nick. The early MCU movies, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and the Avengers, the Phase 1 movies were a little bit like the beginnings of NXT on the WWE Network. When you had a roster of Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville, Tyson Kidd, Tyler Breeze, people like that, and they were going out and they were putting on good matches and putting in good work all the time, and it was very compelling. And then you had this infusion of indie talent in the form of your beginning of Phase 2. Let me not even talk about phases, because that's got me in trouble in the past. So I'll just say, then you get into your run of your Iron Man sequels, your Captain America: The Winter Soldier, your Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're hitting new critical success. This would be the Kevin Owens and Finn Balor and Hideo Itami and God, who else? Samoa Joe era, and then you reach that era that maybe lulls just a little bit, but it's still good. Your Joe and Nakamura feud, your Bobby Roode title reign. Good stuff. Maybe not the best, but good. And then you get your Johnny Gargano and your Tommaso Ciampa and your Adam Cole and your and your current crop, your Andrade Almas and your Aleister Black, your current crop of NXT main eventers and future main eventers. And that's what we hit last year when we get into this next stretch of MCU movies. Yes,
a couple that we're actually starting to enter the era of MCU movies that we've also discussed on these airwaves. We finally started to have the snake eat its own tail a little bit. So some of these are going to be ones that we're coming back around on and applying a new critical eye to. And I think there's something interesting in that, from at least for our listeners, perhaps, to hear how perhaps our opinions will have changed on something like a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, like a Spider-Man Homecoming. Spoiler alert, my feelings haven't changed on that one at all, and I'm sure we will have a very heated disagreement on the quality of that film when we get there. Black Panther is something I'm looking forward to revisiting. I'm so excited for the last year of Hard Travelers for Hire and where we're going. Very much looking forward to seeing how all this shakes out in the end.
Indeed so, and this snake's been trying to eat its own tail for years, but just hasn't been flexible enough to do so.
Indeed.
With that being said, we welcome your feedback on Twitter. I'm at gphillips8652. He is at nickduke87. You can drop us an email, gregp@placetobenation.com, nickd@placetobenation.com. You can join the Place to Be Nation Comics Facebook page. We love to interact with people there. Let us know your lists of MCU movies to this point, your thoughts on Doctor Strange, your thoughts on Mr. Strange, Mrs. Strange, anyone named Strange, Luther Strange, former Alabama Attorney General. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk about it if it's strange. With that being said, we're going to take a break here. Listen to some ads for all the great podcasts here at Place to Be Nation Pop. You've got Go Home in a Box. You've got Talkin' Pop. You've got Geek and Sassy, Sellers Points, which will be having a couple of very distinguished guest stars.
And I might add that Talkin' Pop just had one extremely distinguished guest star recently as well.
And if you love hearing my sultry voice, you can hear me on Survey Says whenever that drops. With my good buddies Tim Capel and Andy Helene. Also, Sunday Groove.
Sunday, easy like David Sunday.
Aha! Almost got you there, Nick.
Well, I was going to go for the Sunday Groove, just to just to tweak him a little bit, and then I figured I remembered my gimmick, so I had to go with Easy Like David Sunday.
David Sunday, yeah. When are you gonna do? When are you gonna do Easy Like David Sunday, Nick?
Yeah.
With your extensive musical knowledge.
Well, whenever he wants to do whenever he wants to do a show on the Time Life Classic Country Collection that features classic story songs such as Old Rivers by Walter Brennan, then I'll be glad to come on and talk about how old was I when I first seen Old Rivers. I can't remember a time when he whatting around.
Yeah.
Good Lord, we need the Jim Ross version of that song.
Yeah. Yes, we do. It wasn't like these BS modern-day country artists. Real country artists knew that you didn't even have to sing.
You just
they were
talked.
so good, they could just talk their way through a song.
Yep. That was the golden era of the story song in country music, and that was...
Wasn't there when we were talking about Prices earlier, I was trying to think of this guy's name. Wasn't there a country singer named Price? A classic country singer?
Oh, Ray Price, yes.
Ray Price, yeah. Dang it. I missed my chance.
He remembers their faded love, Greg.
Oh, my goodness. Well, nonetheless, we hope you stick with us through the break, because when we come back, we've got Reading, Watching, and the Rundown. Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which, of course, includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com, and we offer those to you on 3 great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the original Place to Be podcast, as well as Main Event, Lucha Afterground, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction shows, as well as the Our Vantage Point podcast and Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver quick-hit pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Psychology is Dead, Puro Potpourri, Stacy and Elliot's Bogus Journey, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Letters from Center Stage, Space City, and NWA Classics on Demand Adventure, Through the Years, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Kayfabe, and much more. And on our popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, Rank and File, PTBN Dadcast, Go Home in a Box, NBA Team, and Lucha Undead, as well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans with the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversation, Geek and Sassy, and Imaginary Stories podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to all of our feeds on iTunes, and while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback as well. All of these shows, plus others, available on PlaceToBeNation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon when shopping online, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Bonehead's Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, TheHistoryOfWrestling.com, and Scott Keats' Blog of Doom. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlaceToBeNation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, it is me, the manager, Todd Weber, and I'm here to tell you all about a brand new show on the PTBN Pop feed. It's Talkin' Pop. Each month, hosts Jennifer Smith and Tim Capel discuss the hottest topics in pop culture along with their special guests. Funny, illuminating, and even sometimes a bit naughty, Talkin' Pop is our latest and greatest legendary Place to Be Nation podcast. So be sure to join Jenny and Tim every single month on Talkin' Pop. Proudly part of the PTBN Pop feed on iTunes, Stitcher, and PlaceToBeNation.com. The only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome back to our wonderful and welcoming studios. For those of you who, for some unknown reason, skipped the entire first half of the show and just happened to click on at this very moment, I'm Greg Phillips. With me is Nick Duke in the L-shaped studio in Ho Ho Loon Plaza in beautiful, serene Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. We are here to bring you the back portion of our show, and we're going to get it started right, my friend. We're going to get it started with reading and watching.
Reading and watching. What you been reading and watching? What you been reading and watching?
Nick, I have not been reading anything, as you know. But what you been reading?
Yeah, I did some reading. You know, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing a guest appearance on the Sellers Point podcast, and so I figured if I'm going to do somebody else's show, I should show the common decency of at least attempting to catch up somewhat, at least.
Hey, I've started on Action Comics number 1000.
Hey, I have not, actually, because I'm trying to get caught up on Action beforehand. So I'm actually not even going to talk about Action Comics that I've been catching up on, because I'm going to save that, give the exclusive tomorrow on, or at some point in the future on Sellers Point. So
yeah, we're not. No, that was you didn't hear what you think you heard, folks. We are not in some sort of time displacement here. Right.
So let's I'll talk about the titles that I did manage to catch up on over the weekend. I read Batman 44 and 45. 44 is a one-off story called Something Old, Something New, and my God, I loved this. Tom King writing, Mikel Janin on art, Joelle Jones popping in to do a little co-writing and artistry work, and she is just one of the best Catwoman artists I've seen. Mikel Janin is phenomenal as well, and basically what this story does is most of it takes place in Catwoman's mind as she is, reminiscing about various encounters she's had with Batman over the years as she goes out into Gotham City to find her perfect wedding dress for their impending nuptials. And it provides, it recontextualizes some of the more iconic encounters between the two throughout the entire history of Batman publishing. You get to see Catwoman and Batman costume designs from pretty much every age of Batman, every publishing age of DC Comics that there's been, including a callback to one of Greg and mine's favorite stories, Batman Hush, where they kind of recreate one of those scenes, and we kind of see it play out from Catwoman's perspective. It's just a beautifully done example of how one-shot comics can still work in a modern context, including, I might add, this is a $2.99 book, so it does so with a limited page count, not the full 32 pages, and it's just extremely well done. I give it the highest of recommendations. I stand by the statement from many months ago that Tom King is indeed killing it on Batman. Moving on to Batman 45, I didn't like this one as much. This introduces a Booster Gold-like story, and essentially, Greg, this is kind of trying to be the Batman answer to For the Man Who Has Everything, where Booster, in an attempt to give Batman a gift on his, for his impending nuptials, is trying to give him the gift of experiencing a future in which his parents never died. Now, Booster being Booster, this has all kinds of unforeseen ramifications for the time stream, and he finds himself in quite the predicament. So it's got lots of hilarity along the way, and I will say, I think Tom King shows in this one issue, he is a hell of a Booster Gold writer. I absolutely loved his Booster Gold. Hilarious throughout this one. But Tony Daniel here on art, and not quite as good as the Mikel Janin stuff, not as good as the previous issue, but still a damn solid issue of Batman comics.
They should have given him the gift of Jericho.
They should have. Detective Comics 978 continues the Batman Eternal storyline, and takes the story in a direction I didn't entirely see coming, even though it's pretty blatant they've been teasing it. I didn't think they would get there this soon. We are now fully into the rebirth era of one of Greg and mine's favorite concepts from back during Infinite Crisis, that being Brother Eye and the Omax making their presence felt in the pages of Detective Comics. Aquaman 35 continues the Crown of Thorns storyline. I will say the art shift away from Stepjohn Sajak has been a big loss for this book. The writing is still good, but I'm not enjoying it nearly as much as I was before. Green Lantern 39 is the first of the post Ben Percy era on Green Arrow, and I got to say, did not really like this issue at all. If it weren't for the fact that I know that Benson Sisters are coming in soon, I would probably drop this title, because not a huge fan of this take on Green Arrow, not a huge fan of the art, not a huge fan of the writing, just nothing about it really that struck me, but I'm going to stick with it for the 2 or 3 issues I have to get to the Benson Sisters, who I, as I've talked about on these airwaves, enjoyed their run on Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. And then finally, I got caught up on Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. That included 39, 40, and 41, which wrapped up the Zod's Will storyline. That, this is the first story since the Templar Guardians have kind of resumed the old Guardian role of overseeing everything. And right off the bat, they distinguish themselves as being wholly distinct from the old Guardians, but still just as controversial, as there is already a tension between the Corps and the Guardians, but in a little bit of a different way that I think is going to provide a whole new layer to that dynamic, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. And I enjoyed the Zod's Will storyline, but I will say, issue 42, that kicks off the Dark Stars Rising storyline, I absolutely loved. Ethan Van Sciver back on art. We get to see a lot of things that are finally being paid off in terms of storylines that have been going on for almost 20 issues now. And it feels like this is really the story that Robert Venditti has been building to for his entire run. 3 or 4 years ago it would have been unheard of or ridiculous to even think this, but I am going to be beyond depressed when he wraps up his run on this character and this title. He is a hell of a Green Lantern writer, and I am somewhat trepidatious, to say the least, about the future of the Green Lantern, what the future of the Green Lantern titles might allegedly be, which we will discuss, I'm sure, in future podcasts.
Yes, we should. Yeah. So, very good, Mr. Lau. That's all very interesting, cute things to talk about there. Much like the former, I don't know if you remember, the former TNA wrestler, Cute Kip.
Cute Kip Sop?
That's right. One of the greats of our business. Well, moving on from reading, let's move over to watching.
Watching, yes.
Now, I came in here all ready to talk about the season finale of The Walking Dead because I have thoughts, but I cannot express those thoughts yet.
Yeah, I let everybody down. I just literally did not have time. I made a trip to Athens, Georgia, the promised land, for the spring game. I was out of town. I didn't get a chance to watch and finally catch up on Walking Dead, but I did manage to catch up on all the other DC shows, or all the other comic book shows that we talk about on these airwaves, except for Supergirl. I have not yet watched
haven't either.
The return episode of Supergirl, but I am here. I am prepared to discuss Legends of Tomorrow season finale, Black Lightning season finale, the Flash recent developments, and the Arrow recent developments.
And I'm here to discuss all of that, except I'll see your Walking Dead and raise you a Black Lightning, because I am 3 episodes behind on Black Lightning.
In the interest of that, no Walking Dead this week, no Black Lightning this week. We will discuss the final few episodes of both of those shows in depth at a later date.
That is correct. So let's get on to what we had last week in the... are we just going to do last week, or are we going to go back further, or what do you want to do?
Well, I think for Legends, we only had one last week, so there's just the one episode. Right. And so it's been out there for a couple of weeks, so we won't belabor the point too much. Kind of keep this one brief, but we had this season finale for Legends that, while Legends has been absolutely killing it, I got to admit, I wasn't overly looking forward to the season finale because it was bringing back Jonah Hex. Not that Greg and I have any issue with the character of Jonah Hex, but I think he and I have both voiced many times we just are not a fan of the guy who plays Jonah Hex on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yes,
we were worried...
Shake or whatever.
I think I was worried, at least, that after a really, really strong season of Legends, it was going to get derailed by some forced Jonah Hex involvement here at the end of the season. And while I'll still maintain he wasn't great in this episode, he ultimately didn't matter because he was just kind of ancillary to everything else that was going on. And what was going on was just a wonderful, amazing, hilarious, episode of Legends of Tomorrow that closes out what has a strong argument to be right up there with Season 5 of Arrow and Season 2 of Arrow, arguably the greatest television season of CWDC television to date.
Yeah, it's that good. It is one of the, and I tweeted this out after the episode, that congratulations on CW Legends of putting out one of the best seasons of any of the DC shows to date with their Season 3. It's a show that we talked about how good Season 2 was and how it had found its groove in that season, and to me Season 3 was maybe even better. It just, from a consistency standpoint, from a hitting it out of the park with new characters standpoint, and particularly finding a way to take a character in Damien Dark that was really enjoyable last season and somehow make him even more enjoyable this season. He was an absolute delight, particularly in the last 4 or 5 episodes of this season, and his dynamic with Ray Palmer was great. Seeing all these plot threads from the beginning of the season pay off in different ways, and what seems like it's becoming a yearly theme for the show, which is Rip Hunter dying in a new way every season. So that was pretty funny. And then, of course, without spoiling it, we have to talk about what an amazing climactic battle we had at the end of the season. It was incredibly inventive, incredibly funny, and unexpected.
Yeah, I agree completely. I was I was surprised that they went there in terms of that reveal. It was a callback I was not expecting, but it's one that I greatly appreciated and just put this episode even further over the top. And then we also have the tease for Season 4 in terms of what we might be led to believe is going to be the overall direction. Some cast changes that we know are coming. I think there's an implication there that we're going to see certain characters kind of cycle off the show naturally, certain characters cycle onto the show naturally, and while he wasn't bad in this episode, I am very concerned we're going to see an expanded role for Jonah Hex that I do not want in the upcoming season.
Right, I agree. But I am very excited about the expanded role for one John Constantine.
As am I. Can I make a controversial suggestion? As much as I have enjoyed the character this season, I kind of wish they had written Nadoff in this season.
Really?
I thought they had an opportunity to kind of have their cake and eat it too in terms of Amaya returning to her own timeline, and I thought the natural closure point to that story was to have Nate go with her. And just kind of see if it can work that way. Minor timeline ramifications be damned. Like I thought that would have been a really cool idea for the show because they've made that relationship work and make it, and they've made it interesting in a way that I didn't wholly anticipate when it first started a season ago.
I agree. I just would hate to lose Nate off the show.
It's not a knock on his character. It's more like I felt like there was an opportunity. For a logical
for sure. There. Particularly, I have to get some more scenes of Nate experimenting with drugs. Yes.
Although apparently, from what I understand, there are already plans to bring back Amaya in some sort of limited capacity for next season. So we'll see.
Makes sense. The only characters they really haven't brought back in a limited capacity that used to be on the show have been the Hawks.
Yes.
So let's move on to Tuesday and The Flash. Now, we've had the flashback for 2 weeks now, I believe.
Yes.
And this last episode was a gut punch.
Or do we have it back for 3 weeks? I can't remember.
It might be 3. I can't remember.
I think it is. Yeah, it is 3, because we had the country music episode that was the return. Then we had the levitation chick that was the second week, and then we had this past week.
Yep, good point. I think... I guess we should just talk about the most recent one. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I will say very briefly, the 2 other episodes of Flash since the comeback I thought were okay, but not great.
Yeah.
And then...
Solid.
But then this week's came, and Jesus Christ, man. I was not ready.
No, I wasn't either. It was... I think the other 2 episodes succeeded on the basis of their humor, and this one was just a punch to the gut that I was not expecting. Because I thought, because of some images that had leaked out, I thought that I knew what was going to happen in the episode, and I was going to get pissed about it. But then what I thought was going to happen didn't happen, and what I had no idea was going to happen happened, and man, it was devastating. I'm glad it wasn't the other thing, but I was devastated nonetheless. In a way that I have to admit, I wasn't expecting to be, but they've done such a good job of getting me to care about this version of Ralph Dibny.
Spoilers, yes.
What happens to him in this episode, which I will not say, was somewhat off-putting.
Yes, I think there is an opportunity to go back on it at some point. That's all I'll say there.
But yeah, what they do with Ralph Dibny, I think, provides them with an opportunity to bring back a certain actor from earlier in the season that you and I are both pretty excited to see the return of, and one that I think will be a massive upgrade for the show in a key recurring role going forward.
Yes, I agree with that. No doubt about it. So really good, solid episode for Flash this week. Now, Thursday, of course, brought us the newest episode of Arrow, and it's been a couple weeks since we talked about Arrow, Nick, and I would argue that it's been two of the strongest weeks of back-to-back episodes, really back-to-back-to-back episodes, going back 3 weeks to the Oliver and Diggle conflict. 3 very strong episodes back-to-back that feel like they're getting better with each one. I feel like there's some real momentum building towards the end here.
Yeah, I would argue to this point in the CW seasons that Arrow and The Flash have kind of been two shows on opposite paths. I thought, whereas The Flash started out strong and has kind of lost some momentum as it's gone along, Arrow really started off stumbling from an overall narrative standpoint and has really picked up since the Ricardo Diaz reveal at the midseason. Mm-hmm. And this is just another step along that path. I will say, we're talking about, the last 2 episodes. The one before the most recent one, as you knew it would, I think when we talked, had me very concerned for a time, and luckily it was not what it turned out to be. And in this past episode that was almost entirely Diaz-focused, I just absolutely loved.
Oh, it was amazing.
And it makes me wonder where they're going from here, because I think, the story they're trying to get across is that Ollie needs to get back to his roots and get back to being more like Season 1 Ollie, but that can't be the ultimate lesson he learns from this season. So I'm interested to see how they find that middle ground between lessons from early in his career and while maintaining some of the growth and development he's gotten over the course of the 5 seasons that preceded this, while also not fully re-embracing the Team Arrow aspect, because that is not what I want for the show either. So I think they have a very interesting tightrope to walk here from a narrative standpoint as we go down the closing stretch of this season.
Agreed completely. I thought the 2 episodes ago, like you said, I knew that it would frustrate you at first because it did me because of certain people acting out of character. But then it made sense because they didn't actually do that. So that was good. And then this episode with Diaz was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I thought it was excellent from the acting. I don't know this actor's name, Nick, but he is tremendous.
I believe it's Kirk Acevedo, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Kirk Acevedo.
He is excellent.
He's really good.
In the same way that Prometheus was last year, he's just inherently believable in his role as both a badass and a tactician, and also a tortured individual that, in some ways, is a little bit like Oliver's Bane. Think about his troubled and tortured childhood, and almost the story that was told in Nightfall of Bruce Wayne was this rich kid whose parents die, and he internalizes all this. Well, Bane is born into nothing, and in fact born into suffering for his father's mistakes, and is just tortured growing up, and it creates this festering insecurity in him his whole life that he's fighting against, and that's kind of what we get with Ricardo Diaz. And this episode was so good that not only did I not mind Laurel, I actually kind of enjoyed her in her role of, now that they appear, for now, to have picked an evil path for her, which I would argue is for the better, not nearly as annoying in her current role as Diaz's flunky. And Diaz now is just amazingly multi-dimensional villain character, which is something that Arrow has generally done a really good job at, is have these multi-dimensional villains. And he's spectacular. I'm really excited to see where they go from here as they wind down.
Speaking of multi-dimensional villains, not to get too far, dig too far back, but 2 episodes ago, what about that cameo role for Adrian Chase as a hallucinated version of Prometheus?
Good.
Yes, that was awesome.
Did it make you miss Prometheus like it did me?
Yes, and I'll tell you what I loved is near the end of the episode when you can actually see the bullet wound scars on the side of his head. Just a nice touch by the makeup team.
Absolutely agree completely. It was so great to see Josh Segarra back on the show and putting in another stellar performance. Season 5 of Arrow was special, and it was nice to see a callback to that. And also, importantly, limiting the exposure of the rest of Team Arrow. Particularly, we get a little bit of Curtis in this episode, but we haven't seen Renee for quite some time, thankfully. And we really didn't see Dinah at all in this episode.
We didn't see Dinah either of the last 2 episodes that I can think of. She's kind of been off the table, which, oh well, I guess.
Yeah.
Fine like this.
So there is one other thing that we've watched since last we talked to you, our adoring audience. And that is a group viewing, along with Mr. Garner and Mr. Sunday, of a little ditty called Batman and Harley Quinn by DC Animation. And it is simultaneously one of the weirdest projects I think DC Animation has done, and yet it left me saying when it was over, "Don't pull your love out on me, baby." I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Not all of it is great, but I think it is one of the funniest ones they've done. It's very funny. It's nice to hear the old Robin voice, Lauren Lester, back to do Dick Grayson as Nightwing. It's just a fun, entertaining little movie there.
Well, let me ask you this about it, Greg. Haven't I been good to you? What about that brand new ring? Doesn't that mean love to you? Doesn't that mean anything? Good stuff.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What we're referring to, folks, are, of course, the red-headed, incestuous singing twins.
Of course. Because you all know what those are.
Absolutely. So, anyway, that's what we've been watching, which means that it's time, once again, for our weekly look at the news and notes in the comic book world. It's time for...
Welcome to the rundown, where we talk some comic news. Welcome to the rundown, where we talk about movies too.
Yes, welcome to the rundown.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get things started by talking about a pair of comic book related movie teaser preview trailers that have come out in the last week or so. And the first one to drop was, of course, Deadpool 2. Has a brand new trailer that came out that managed to poke fun at Thanos and the MCU, the Goonies, and, notably, the DCEU. Where do we want to start with this Deadpool trailer? It was awesome. I mean, every trailer for Deadpool 2 has been awesome.
Yeah, I completely agree. The shots at the shots at the DC universe, the references to Josh Brolin's rather busy comic book movie career, it was just brilliant from beginning to end. I can't wait for this film. I really don't know what else there is to say. It was outstanding. The movie's going to be nuts. I'm so excited.
Incredibly funny. Just very excited for this one. Also, the introduction of X-Force in this, where we see some of those individuals.
Which I believe Peter is going to be the breakout character of X-Force.
Peter is already my favorite character in this movie. I am invested in Peter right now.
You know what's nuts? I don't even know if you know this, but you know Peter has a Twitter account?
I heard that somewhere, but I haven't examined it.
So Peter has a Twitter account that apparently 20th Century Fox created like a year ago, and they've built up like 6 or 8 months worth of like fake tweets that are just about this really normal, average, boring guy, and they just now like linked him, this Twitter account that's been out there, to Deadpool 2 when this trailer dropped.
That's amazing.
Yes.
That's commitment.
Yes.
Well, we also got another prominent comic book trailer this week from outside the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as is Deadpool 2. This one comes from Sony, and it is in the form of our second trailer.
First full-length trailer for Venom.
First full-length trailer for Venom, starring Tom Hardy. And it has drawn a wide range of reactions on the internet, from excitement to surprise to dread to confusion.
Yeah.
So
I think I have a little bit of all of that after watching it.
I think our emotions run the entire gamut of the emotional spectrum, perhaps even delving into the ultraviolet spectrum.
The ultraviolet spectrum, yes. Yes, indeed.
I think we do get our first actual look at Venom in this, and CGI concerns aside, because those are certainly there, overall, I'm pleased by the look. I think it looks as close as I've seen to the rather out there portrayals of Venom from the comics. So that's kind of neat.
They are going full McFarlane with it. That is certainly what it looks like.
Long tongue and
the
whatnot.
Long tongue, the rows of teeth. Like, I dig the conceptual design of that character as we see at the end of that trailer. But like you said, and you try not to read too much into this, because there are cases like Iron Man, like Rogue One, like various examples of movies that have their CGI improved immensely from trailer to final production. And let's hope that's the case here, because I was not impressed by the symbiote CGI in this.
The what now?
We'll address that next. By the symbiote CGI in this trailer, but the overall design of the symbiote I liked a lot, and I think they've got a solid foundation to build on. They just got to polish it up a little bit between now and October. And then luckily for them, they've got time. This can be done, but there is work left to do.
Okay, so let me talk about what I liked about the trailer. The conceptual design of Venom.
Yes.
For the first time, in my opinion, actually, because I don't really think that they touched on this enough in Spider-Man 3 at all, the inner conflict.
Yes, the duality of the character.
Of Eddie Brock and the symbiote as two different
personalities.
Yes,
and something that isn't just important to doing Venom as a character, but also important to helping it stand alone in the superhero pantheon, because we haven't really seen some, duality taken to that degree. Like, everybody has, Batman and Bruce Wayne. He definitely has a conflict within him, but not literally two distinct separate personalities struggling for control at all times. I think this is what they need to lean into if this movie is going to stand alone as being distinct and worthy of, real consideration by the superhero comic book fan community.
Thing number 3 that I liked, and this is where I will conclude this portion, Tom Hardy's acting is always strong.
Yes. He's got a presence about him that you just can't deny.
You can't deny. It looks like he's going to give it a strong performance. Now, let's get into the cons. Do we want to hit the obvious one first, or do we want to get into some of the more substantive ones? Or
it's weird, because, like, ultimately it's something that doesn't matter. Like, it's not going to matter to the overall quality of the film. But did anyone that watched that trailer, was there anyone that wasn't bothered as hell by Jenny Slate's pronunciation of the word symbiote? Symbiote. And as if they weren't just going to let you just going to let you be like, oh, that's weird, and gloss over it, because they smacked you in the face with it like 4 times in the course of a 2-minute trailer.
Symbiote.
Yes,
it was reminiscent of the Miller Lite catfight girl and the pronunciation of Hogan.
And the thing is, that had to have been direction, right?
I guess.
Because there's no way that is pronounced that way, and it's not tripped over by the director unless that's the way he wants it. You know what I mean?
Right. Very odd. Didn't like it. Didn't like that at all. Okay, let's move past that. What accent is Tom Hardy doing in this movie?
I don't have a clue. Like a weird British New York hybrid, you know? Like it's not a British accent, but it sounds like a British accent. Does that make, like, you can definitely tell he is trying really hard to mask his accent, and it comes off as very odd.
There's even a little bit of a like a gangster element to it.
Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah.
Just a little bit of that. What are you talking about?
I guess that's the New York thing that I'm referencing.
So I don't know. I just can't. I can't really place it. But again, not that important ultimately. So the dialogue in the trailer.
Yeah.
Your boss is an evil person.
Yeah.
Not the best dialogue in the world. The anti-hero thing. Nick, your thoughts?
Very forced and beats you about the head and neck area with what they want this film to be, but
So overall, a mixed bag, I think, and as we keep saying with this movie, seemingly every time that we talk about it, I just can't get a read on it. I just don't know. I don't know that it's going to be bad. I don't know that it's going to be good. I don't know what it's going to be.
I will say that this is the first time this movie has shown me anything that I sit there and I go, this might work. Like, right. I've had a little bit of faith just because of the inclusion of Tom Hardy. This is the first time they've put something on the screen that I go, I can see the vaguest outline of how this might be successful. In terms of leaning into the duality of it, in terms of Tom Hardy giving a really strong performance. Now, what we don't need from this film is the generic evil businessman that we see in the trailer being the primary antagonist. Because if that's the route they go, it's dead on arrival.
What we need, Nick, are more comic book movies with generic evil businessman villains.
Yes, if they go that route, it's dead on arrival. No matter how magnetic Tom Hardy is, it will not work with that level of villain. Comic book movies have reached a point where we just, we don't expect that anymore. So,
right.
The hot rumor that's out there is that Carnage is in this movie. I don't necessarily know that I want that revealed in the trailer, but let's hope that is the case because we need something compelling that does not appear to be there with this evil generic businessman.
Right. Well, let's move on to your favorite area of the studio and mine. It's the DCEU Corner. DCEU Corner. And this week's news comes to us, first of all, in the form of a report by Deadline that we finally have a director for the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie. Mm-hmm. And that is director Kathy Yan. Mm-hmm. Kathy Yan was chosen over numerous well-established male directors, according to Deadline. Yan reportedly had a, quote, exceptional pitch for the film, and star Margot Robbie was adamant that the film be directed by a woman. Yan comes to this movie after her recent film Dead Pigs won Sundance's World Cinema Dramatic Award for ensemble acting. This was pretty much, from the report, it sounds like this was about placating star Margot Robbie, who was essential to getting this to happen. And I, for one, am excited to see more of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn.
Yes, particularly in something like a Birds of Prey movie. I think there's a lot of potential there, and let's just Let's leave it at that. We know nothing about Kathy Yon. She's done one critically acclaimed Sundance film. That's all she's done. I don't usually watch Sundance films. I'm unlikely to watch this film. So we'll see how she does with the DCEU.
And while staying in the DCEU, let's hit what, and this is covering a lot of ground, Nick, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, what may be the most bizarre announcement yet from DC's film division.
I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
And that announcement is that Warner Brothers is actively working on a film adaptation of the World War II era concept and character Black Hawk, and that it will be produced by and possibly directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yes. Spielberg doing a DC movie is bizarre. I'll grant you that. But Spielberg doing a World War II fighter pilot movie, that kind of makes sense to me.
Sure.
But the idea that it's Black Hawk, that is a bit odd. Like, of all the DC properties to mine, Black Hawk? And it makes me wonder if this just wasn't an opportunity where Spielberg wanted to do something and DC just kind of went with it. I can't imagine that it was DC being gung-ho about the idea of doing a Black Hawk movie
yeah,
and reaching out to Spielberg. I imagine that had to come the other way around. And I gotta be honest, like, as exciting as it is to have Spielberg allegedly be part of the effort over at Warner Brothers and at DC, I just don't care that much about seeing a Black Hawk movie. Like,
yeah,
I want them to get the goddamn DC universe right. Get that right. Like, fix it. Figure it out and fix it. Like, it's great that you got work. It's great that you've got Steven Spielberg. It's great that he's going to do a fucking Black Hawk movie. You know, I'm sure we'll get Sergeant Rock or something like that after, you know, to follow up on it. But can you just get your fucking superhero universe right, please? Like, put all your eggs in that basket. Put your best and brightest on that. But yeah, a Black Hawk movie. What the fuck ever.
Yes, and stop me if you've heard this before, Steven Spielberg doing a period piece.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure it's going to be a good movie if it happens, sure. But I just don't care.
I was kind of hoping that with Ready Player One that was Steven Spielberg kind of getting out of his period piece phase, but maybe not. But nonetheless, I'm sure it could be a good movie, and Blackhawks, they do have a good backstory and all that. They had a great episode of Justice League with the Blackhawks, if you recall, on the cartoon. But we'll see how that all turns out. Well, let's go from the DC silver screen onto the small screen. And one of our favorite shows, Arrow, is making some changes as they head into, officially, Season 7. And after several seasons, Arrow is replacing its longtime showrunners, Wendy Miracle and Mark Guggenheim. They will exit their positions and be replaced by Beth Schwartz, who is currently a co-producer on the show and has been a writer as well on the show. Miracle is out entirely of the Arrow world. Guggenheim will stay on board as executive consultant, which, if you'll recall, was, I believe, the official title of Mr. Perfect to the Nature Boy Ric Flair in 1991 and 92.
Yes, but no, I do think it's cool to see Guggenheim kind of ascending to the role of, like, overall overseer of the DC universe on the CW. You know, he's not leaving Arrow entirely. He's going to oversee it. He's going to oversee Legends. He's going to have a hand kind of guiding the overall direction of all the interconnected shows, while, you know, acknowledging he probably doesn't have the bandwidth anymore to showrun a show. I think it's more interesting that Wendy Miracle is leaving because, you know, this season aside, it felt like after last season that Arrow had started to regain some of its momentum, and now it's weird to have such a big shakeup. We'll see what comes of it, though.
Indeed, and you know, I don't know what's going to happen on the show, but I am excited to see what changes could be in store. And again, I think both of us are hoping for that simplification and kind of step away from the Team Arrow aspect a little bit. or at least a consolidation back down to a smaller core group. Star Wars news, Nick. I know that you are always excited about Star Wars news, and in this case, Marvel's Star Wars number 50 is a landmark issue, and Kieran Gillen, not Karen Gillen, but Kieran Gillen is going to write a story that he says will be an official bridge between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. Nick, your thoughts?
Well, that's kind of been the story of this Star Wars comic since it relaunched, is that the first issue of this Star Wars comic, back when Marvel decided to fully move the Star Wars publishing line back in-house, away from Dark Horse, who had the license for a long time, is that it picked up right after the events of A New Hope, and it was going to carry you into that time period between A New Hope and Empire. And so that story, that time period has a natural expiration date. There's only so long you can do stories set in that time period before we have to start to bump up against that time frame of Empire. And so that's going to happen, it feels like. And I wouldn't be surprised to see either the series renumber or just do a big a time jump to after the events of Empire and get into that between Empire and Return time frame. I think that makes the most sense. It's logical. We've built to that point. We've had a good run up to this point, and I'm ready for a status quo shift as we approach that logical point.
Very good, and it all sounds interesting to me. We reviewed that first volume of it, which I thought was quite good. So I'm looking forward to reading more of it eventually. To close things out this week, Nick, we had a little Star Wars for you, and now we get a little 1990s nostalgia for me, because this week came an announcement that Upper Deck, the card publisher, is dusting off the old Fleer Ultra line for a new series of X-Men trading cards, which will be very similar to the classic, unforgettable 90s style Marvel cards that we've talked about before with Tim Capel and others. That was just a big part of my childhood, and a big part of a lot of childhoods, I think. We've already seen some of the artists displaying some of their artwork from the cards, and it's awesome. I can't wait for this. This is going to be great. I don't know what the market is for this at this point. Because obviously the comic book audience is not what it was in 1992 or 93, but I'm happy they're doing these because they're just super fun, and as long as people don't ruin them with getting overly serious about collecting and stuff, it's gonna be a fun thing, I think.
Yeah, I would agree too. I don't have the nostalgia for the cards like you do, but I know there will be a lot of people excited about them making a return, at least initially, and we'll see where they go from there.
And with that said, we're at the end of our line, ladies and gentlemen. We're at the end of our rope. We're at the culmination of our very sensual and sexual journey. We're at the end of the show is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
And before we leave you, I would like to pitch to Nicholas over here to let us know what we've got coming your way in the very near future.
So here in the coming weeks, we'll actually have two different long book hunts because we never gave you a long book hunt for April. So we'll have two of those in May to make up for the fact that we kind of bumped up Hard Travelers for Hire. The plan as of right now is to do one on the classic John Byrne miniseries Man of Steel to play off the recent release of Action Comics 1000 and the impending release of Brian Michael Bendis' Man of Steel miniseries that is going to serve as the jumping off point for a new line of Superman comics, much the same way John Burns did back in the 80s. The other tentative long book we have is currently Ed Brubaker's Killer Be Killed. I'm not sure if we'll wind up doing that or not due to concerns over both of us being able to read it, but we'll have another long book of some sort with you. We've also got set up a countdown of our top 5 active writers in comics and an off-the-page about on Avengers Assemble, which should be a ton of fun to mock openly, considering how much we hate what we've seen of that show. And then we'll be wrapping up the month of May with another giant size edition. Yes, because we were so late with Comic Book Theater, that means it's already time for another giant size. And what better time to run your flags to half staff than the 2018 halfies, which we are hoping to bring to you here at the end of May.
Absolutely. And if there's one thing that Nick and I are completely qualified to do this year, it's tell you what's been good and bad in comics in 2018.
Absolutely, absolutely. But as always, we'll be joined by a as of yet undetermined panel of guests that will help us to.
You just leave that to us.
Yeah, we'll figure all that out. We will certainly figure all that out. But as I referenced earlier in the show, I wanted to mention a theme month that we have come. What in the God-forsaken hell? You can't unsee some things, Greg. For God's sake.
What are you talking about?
We'll discuss it off air. All I'll say is don't bother to look at your Facebook Messenger and try to podcast at the same time, because the image of certain individuals from the city of Atlanta that have certain pro-WWE opinions posting things about fucking dildos is not a mental image I needed in my life. Yes.
This can't be real.
I don't want to talk about it. It's too disgusting to contemplate. But in any event, theme months. The month of July, Greg. Do you know what July 2018 marks?
July 2018. Let me think. July 2018. Will that mark? I just can't think of what it could be. 80 years of Superman?
It will mark the 10-year, Greg, anniversary of the release of what you and I both consider to be the finest superhero film of all time, that being Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. And so, during the month of July, we are going to bring to you a series of very special off the pages as Greg and I look back at the Dark Knight trilogy in its entirety in consecutive weeks, and then wrap up the month of July with a countdown of our top 5 Dark Knight trilogy scenes from across all 3 movies. An entire month dedicated to a retrospective look at the Dark Knight trilogy. I am beyond pumped to bring that to you in the month of July.
That's going to be fun.
Yes.
And for us, not so much for Tim, I'm afraid, our loyal friend and listener. But we're gonna gush. We're gonna gush in that month.
We are going to verbally fillate in ways that we've never verbally fillated before.
Right. Hyperbole will be used in high number. Every adjective that we can possibly find positive.
We will wind it up by not discussing where the films rank amongst comic book films, but honestly, we will be trying to justify them as among the greatest films ever made, period.
Yes, and in fact, maybe by the end of it, we will be upholding them as sentient entities that are to be considered and listened to as if they were able to converse with us.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it.
That is all spectacular news. That is great PN news, and I am John tentatively looking forward to the next couple months just to get to that wonderful Dark Knight month. Well, with that being said, I can't help but notice, Nick, that there's a minute on the clock. And that can only mean that we are about to begin the Wrestling Minute. Big week in WWE. We had the Superstar Shakeup a week ago, and we've started to see a little bit of how that's running out. We haven't had a chance to watch SmackDown yet, just Raw. But Nick, Superstar Shakeup thoughts?
For the first time in the recorded history of either the draft or the draft lottery or the shakeup or whatever you want to call any version of a similar concept that WWE's done off and on for the past 15 years, I felt like SmackDown, for the first time ever, hands down, won the Superstar Shakeup. From a singles perspective, from a tag perspective, from a women's perspective, they won every division across both shows. SmackDown has gone from occasional viewing for me to must-see television each and every week based on the roster alone. And as great as the singles roster is, don't get me wrong, how freaking stacked is the SmackDown tag division?
New Day, Usos,
The Bar,
The
The Good Brothers.
Good brothers. And that's a minute. We'll have to continue our conversation later. But that has been the Wrestling Minute, folks. And again, we want to thank you for listening. Thank you for all your feedback over the time. Give us any feedback you want. How can we be better? What do you want to hear us talk about? Are we flapping our gums too much? Not enough? Let us know what your thoughts are. We don't have to listen, but you can send them in anyway. And with that being said, everyone have a pleasant Avengers Infinity War week.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy the film if you get to see it this week. And by all means, after you're done sending in your feedback to us for this show, avoid the internet.
Yes.
This weekend before you see the movie. You don't want to get spoiled on anything. I'm already seeing things that are not even spoilers, but they're approaching the neighborhood of things that could be considered spoilers. And so I'm already preemptively muting virtually every comic book related account that I follow on Facebook and Twitter. So good luck navigating the minefield, and we will be here same bat time, same bat channel next week on PTB and Pop with the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
You vicious little son of a bitch.
They're indivisible. They're microwavable.
No, Mr. Eddie!
Ooh, hard-traveling fanboy, oi, 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 ois.
Are you going to give me fucking anything on this show, or why are we even here?
Listen up, slap dick. Let me answer the fucking question. Give me a minute. Well, Klondike Bill told me that if he ever came across a woman who was extremely clean and well kept, he would tell her to put on a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt, go take a 2-mile jog, and then come back and see him when she was done.
I believe it was quite sudden and painful.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys.